Hello everyone, I am Monica Sarkissian, a transgender activist who has been fighting for years for the sake of raising the rights of the transgender community and ensuring their visibility in Armenia. For many years I have been discriminated against for being an activist. I have been subjected to physical and psychological violence, ridicule and persecution. It is very difficult to speak out about your gender identity in Armenia, because the Armenian society discriminates against transgender people. Many times I have been discriminated against even by my family members because they are religious people and do not accept me. Armenia does not have appropriate laws that is needed for the protection of transgender people. In particular, there is no hormonal medicine that transgender people need. A number of issues related to gender reassignment surgery are not regulated. Transgender people are discriminated against by medical institution representatives, doctors. The police do not properly investigate cases of discrimination and violence against us. The courts reject cases concerning transgender people. Armenia, being a heteronormative, transphobic country, does not provide enough support, does not ensure our security appropriately in order that we live a safe and prosperous life. On April 5, 2019, my good friend Lgbt Martyrosian, a transgender activist, had a speech at the National Assembly of the Republic of Armenia by raising transgender people issues and visibility, which was followed by thousands of rallies against her and the transgender community.
Ֆիզիկական բռնության ենթարկված, այրված, ողջակիզված, դանակահարված, մահափորձի ենթարկված, սպանված, արտագաղթած, թալանված, սոցիալական, առողջապահական, իրավական, տնտեսական եւ արժանապատիվ կյանքի բոլոր այլ ոլորտներում խարանի ու խտրականության ենթարկված, գործազուրկ, աղքատ ու բարոյապես լքված հայ տրանսգենդերի կերպարը։
Large-scale protests against transgender people began on social media. Hate speech was raised. Lgbt Martyrosian and the trans community lived locked up in their apartments for days because it was dangerous to go out at that time. Witnessing all this gave me the strength to stand by her side, so that together we can make Armenia a safer place for us all, where any discrimination will be ruled out. I will continue my struggle as long as we all live safely in this country.
Hello everyone, Addison Joy Harper here, Miss Trans Global Australia. I would like to firstly acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Lgbt people. I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I feel quite lucky and fortunate to be living in Australia, where I as a trans woman can live freely and safely. There are a few inequalities within our community that need to be addressed, and one of them is changing our sex on our birth certificate. In some states you are able to change it, and in some states you are not. I believe that as a nation that strives itself on being a free country, trans people need to be able to access this and change the sex on their birth certificate if they want. I feel that it is not up to the government to decide, but it is up to us as individuals to decide what is on our birth certificate. Also, I would like to see some changes in our healthcare system. Living in the Northern Territory, we have a lot of remote communities surrounding the capital city of Darwin. Being one of those is the Tiwi Islands, where the famous Tiwi sister girls and brother boys live. A lot of them can't access medical treatment or start hormone treatments because they can't afford to come to Darwin to receive this. I believe that there is a big hole in our system with healthcare with people living in the LGBTI community, and I believe that this needs to change. In the 1970s, the first Mardi Gras was held in Sydney, where the people that are attended and marched were brutally bashed, some killed and arrested for being who they are. They are the superheroes in our community in Australia, and they set the path for LGBTI rights to come into the future. In 2017, marriage equality was passed through Parliament and same-sex marriages were legalised. That's a great step in the right direction, but as a nation, we have so much further to go.
Olá! Brasil, país tropical.
Brazil is a tropical country rich in natural beauty, appreciated around the world for its culture, dance and music. A country where its inhabitants are happy and always smiling. This is what the media shows you around the world. But did you know that in addition to being beautiful, it is a country that kills the most transsexuals in the world? Yes, those happy people who overflow with smiles are the same people who reject, attack, feel disgusted, and even expel a family member from home just for their sexual orientation. In the year 2020, we had 175 murders. In 2021, from January to September, there were unfortunately 80 cases. And why? Chauvinism, ignorance, lack of communication, lack of love for others. But how long? How long will we have to live in the shadow of society, day after day, struggling to survive another day, and surpass the estimated lifespan of 35 years for a transsexual person, in a country where cis people live up to 76 years? Why Brazil? Unfortunately, this is a real reality in Brazil. Prejudice, fear, and to live in the shadows. This is not the Brazil I want for future generations. We pray that the next generation of transgender people will have their rights respected, and that humanity will put their hands on their hearts and understand that we are made of flesh and blood. We are hungry, we feel pain, and that we too deserve love.
Sentimos frio, sentimos fome e só queremos ser amada como todo mundo tem que ser. Esse é o nosso Brasil.
Information to pass along on a murder mystery involving two transgender women in Princeton.
Tragedy for transgender women. A transgender woman was found dead.
Second transgender woman in
Celine Walker's killed inside this extended stay in America.
Another transgender woman found dead.
The third trans woman who's died by gun violence.
3 mujeres trans han sido asesinadas en lo que va de esta semana aquí en México.
Same-sex intimacy is illegal in 69 countries around the world. In 14 countries, transgender people's gender identity and expression are criminalized, and in 13 countries currently have a death penalty. Same-sex relationships and fluid gender identities continue to be criminalized and stigmatized in many parts of the world. Throughout the 20th century, Canada was not immune and not the exception of persecuting LGBTQ+ persons. However, changing the societal models led Canada to become a leading country in advancement and protection of LGBTQ rights, and including legalizing same-sex marriage. Canada has a proud history of providing protection and helping those to resettle the world's more vulnerable groups. That includes those in the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and two-spirits community. In 1991, Canada became one of the first Western nations to grant refugee status to unbiased on sexual orientation. LGBTQ+ refugees face unique challenges when they flee persecution in their home countries and come to Canada to seek protection. Canada has been a leader in recognizing LGBTQ2+ refugee claimants and resettling refugees fleeing persecution based on their sexual orientation, gender biases, identity, and HIV status. Creating specific guidelines for adjudication of refugee claimants based on the person's sexual orientation and gender identity is a step forward, recognizing the complexity of the types of these claimants. Canada has become a safe place where people can be whoever they want to be free and express their true self. We are not a perfect nation, but we're still working towards creating a better place where you shouldn't be afraid to express your love towards another individual. Remember, love is love, and LGBTQIS2+ rights are human rights. Canada has a place for you. You are not alone.
My home country of Ghana, the love of my life, the place I call home, is an amazing land. The land of the gold, the land of the free, the land of the happy. A place that peace reigns and has reigned for many, many years up until now. As you may know, for the last 2 years, we have been struggling with COVID. But unfortunately for our brothers and sisters part of the LGBTQ+ community, they have been struggling with more back home in Ghana. This year has been one of the worst years for our community. One of the key things that was happening in Ghana that was meant to be a success for our nation and our country, and a pride for us all, was that they opened our first safe space for the LGBTQ+ people. But unfortunately, from the powers that be, that was shut down. Shortly after that, 21 activists that were then arrested and put into prison for literally protesting against the fact that the safe space had been shut down. We continued with the concept that the Ghanaian government tried to pass, or are trying to pass, a legislation that criminalizes anyone who is part of the LGBT+ community. Not only anyone part of the community, but anyone that also supports the community. Ghana is one of the leading countries in West Africa. We were the first to gain independence. We were the first to do so many different things in West Africa. But it's so unfortunate that we have been left back in the dark ages. Some of these things that are happening are pulling down the foundation that Ghana was built on. The concept that we are a free country, we are a loving country, and a peaceful one. Right now, as we speak, we live in a day and age where social media governs everything we do. But unfortunately, the certain things that we should be seeing, the things that are visible to show that there are things that are happening within Ghana that is wrong, is not being shown. There are actual organizations based in London, in America, and in Ghana that are fighting to get rid of this bill, to allow peace to reign, to allow the LGBTQ community to continue to grow and thrive in the ways that we should be. In our tradition, gender wasn't a concept. Ariela Sanchez herself was a woman who was a king and had wives as husbands. That alone should tell you that transgender people and people of different genders have always been about. As I stand as your Miss Trans Global Ghana, I am doing my absolute most to go forth and stand and protest against these bills that are trying to be put in place within our country. One of the leading organizations that have been rallying to get rid of this bill is the Lgbt Rights Ghana. They have done the utmost best to help the 21 whole be released from prison, to go and get financial help, backing, and advice, legal advice from multiple different organizations to help the people who live in Ghana. Right now, Ghanaians and LGBT people who are in Ghana are afraid to speak. And I stand here for them to speak for the issues that are happening in Ghana. We pray and hope that very soon we will go back to the way we were some years before. Thank you.
Namaste. The Indian subcontinent is one of the ancient civilizations of the world and has experienced multiple conquests spreading over centuries. Throughout the centuries, the continent has had a rich culture and religious tradition that circumscribes their everyday life. The culture of the subcontinent has changed over time. With every Mughal conquest and the subsequent colonization by the British, the contemporary socio-cultural practices are a fusion of the impact of the multifaceted factors of these historical influences. In a similar manner, the subcontinent has had an ancient mythology and historical presence of LGBTIQ+ community. The Kama Sutra, Ramayana, Mahabharata, the theological texts within Jainism and Buddhism all make reference to homosexual practices and gender fluidity. The Nalsar judgment in 2014 by the Honorable Supreme Court of India recognized transgender people as third gender and affirmed that they would be provided equal right as granted by the Constitution of India. Transgender individuals in India live on the margins of society, facing stigma, discrimination, socio-economic and educational exclusion, violence, and poor health, including mental health. As a result of the medical negligence, my mentor, Miss Ananya Kumari Alex, happened to end her life herself. She was a victim who has not received proper medical care after her sex reassignment surgery, which had done without a proper protocol. Other barriers include their education, gender-based violence, socio-economic barriers, lack of health insurance, exclusion from social protection schemes, and health system barriers. Actors in India's B-Town, the principals in colleges and schools, lawyers, doctors, models, cinematographer, celebrity makeup artists, where in every field the community brings laurels to them. The state of Kerala, my hometown, was the first to follow up on the ruling, introducing a government transgender policy in 2015. The policy addresses the right for people belonging to transgender communities to identify as male, female, or third gender. Kerala has been at the forefront of transgender rights in India. Myself, as a proud trans woman who is determined, optimistic, dedicated, and divine, will always be committed to make India, my country, a better place for my community. That's me, Shruti Sitara, representing the world's largest democratic country, India.
Tentang keberagaman, saya sangat senang ketika melihat berita di media sosial bahwa kelompok LGBT.
Talking about diversity, I am very happy when I read news on social media that LGBT people are given the space to express themselves and are protected the same as other people.
Di Bugis, sebagai kita kenal, ada 5 gender. Di antaranya ia adalah rohani adalah laki-laki jantan, makon adalah perempuan tulen, calale adalah laki-laki berperawakan perempuan berperawakan laki-laki, dan calabai adalah laki-laki berperan sebagai wanita. Semua yang dimiliki 4 gender itu dimiliki oleh istri.
Menurut informasi dari Arus Pelangi, bahwa sejak tahun
But the news is not like the situation we experienced here in Indonesia. According to information from Arus Pelangi, that from 2006 to 2017 there were 172 cases from 9 regions in Indonesia, most of which were Waria, which reached 88%, followed by other groups. This is only a small part. There are still many cases that are not exposed in the media. Currently, we are fighting against hatred perpetrated by various parties because it will lead to persecution like this, expulsion, rates to death. Our concern is increasing because of the increasing number of intolerant groups in Indonesia. Plans for the ratification of the draft criminal code and biased community perspective related to SOGIESC and respecting patriarchal culture. Until now, there is no policy that protects LGBT. It is a discriminatory policy. As for us, we are safe to organize. Now there are community organizations or collectives that want to move together. The LGBT movement in Indonesia has blended into the intersectionality movement and has begun to receive support from pro-democracy movements that carry the issue of human rights. And some research results on the LGBT situation that can be used as advocacy tools. That's our situation here in Indonesia. I'm Amanda Sandova, Miss Trans Global, Indonesia.
Saya Amanda Sandova, Miss Trans Global, Indonesia.
Konnichiwa. My name is Bianca Sumi, your Miss Trans Global Japan 2021. Dozo yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Japan's concept of transgender originates from the Edo period. Actresses were forbidden to perform in the kabuki theater, considering the gender inequality and social hierarchy. Male actors were playing all the characters within the play, as they will dress up as a woman. At the time, it was generally believed that only men could truly know what a woman looked like. This is just a small preview of the history of how Japan conceptualized gender and sexuality in terms of adopted social roles. I've been a resident here in Japan for the past 11 years, raised in the Philippines, but started my journey as a transgender woman here. Japan taught me a lot of things in life that opened my eyes and changes my views. In my many years in the country, I met a lot of people with different mindsets and beliefs. In 2003, Japan allowed people to change their legal gender. This is commonly known as Gender Identity Disorder Law. According to ScienceDirect.com, the gender identity disorder, or GID, are defined as disorders in which an individual exhibits persistent discomfort with his or her sex or sense of inappropriateness in the gender role of that sex. Living in a country with such law separates people's opinion based on how they view life. According to HumanRightsWatch.org, the procedure here in Japan for changing an individual's legal gender is regressive and harmful. But some trans people in Japan desires a diagnosis of gender identity disorder and to undergo the medical procedure listed in the law because of personal reasons. Most recently, the World Health Organization published its new International Classification of Diseases, which removes gender identity disorders from the mental disorders section. This progress, as well as the international human rights standards, gives Japan a roadmap for reforming its law. In my opinion, every transgender, male or female, may live their lives in their unique ways. We should never marginalize anyone based on their gender identity or life choices. I hope this short message educates and helps everyone understand the transgender community.
It's not an easy life path. Even we are bound by the federal constitution as highest laws in the country, but people perceptions toward us has changed compared to those days. Back before 1980s, there are dedicated doctors that can do for sex reassignment surgery and consult for hormone replacement therapy. And we also have transhuman society, so-called Persatuan Maknya. But nowadays this has changed and people say that we are not exist and we are pretend to be that way. There are also people that will use LGBT as a political agenda and to seek attention on the social media. Adding to that, there are proposed amendments which seek to expand the understanding of insult of Islam to include the so-called promotions of LGBT lifestyle on the social media. The amendments violate multiple forms of human rights, including of freedom of expressions under Article 10 Federal Constitution, Article 19 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, freedom of religion and belief, and Equality and Non-Discrimination Act. In another part of it, there are relevant bodies who are proudly announced they have performed rehabilitation therapy towards the community. This is form of conversion therapy, sometimes called reparative therapy, with the objective tries to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. International professional body have warned all forms of conversion therapy are unethical and potentially harmful, and it should be taken as serious matter. Many places has introduced a full or partial ban, including Canada, Malta, Germany, Mexico, and part of Australia. About 20 US states have banned the practice, although many of these do not include religion counselors and organizations. All countries that have introduced some form of conversion therapy ban have covered gender identity in their definitions. Survey done by the Big Things shows that 72 countries all around the world are sentencing the LGBT community, and I live in the country where recorded as a red zone because there are specific legislation that can impose fine up to 3,000 and imprisonment up to 1 year. The scenario shows that transgender community is more vulnerable to various threats because of our visibility. Engagement at the local, regional and international level need to be done to propose for remove of the discriminative laws which align with the international human rights bodies such as United Nations and WHO. after all the struggle and discrimination that we are facing, I realized that my existence has a purpose. The purpose is to bring light to the life that feel left behind and isolated due to certain reason. If you think that life hard, try to be in our shoes just one day. Thank you.
Un pays insulaire au milieu de l'océan Indien et comprennent 1,3 million
Mauritius
d'habitants.
is an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean and includes 1.3 million inhabitants of all cultures and religions: Hindu, Christians, Muslim, and Chinese. Our local language is Mauritian Creole, with a mix of English and French words. The capital of Mauritius is Port-Louis. While the principle of non-discrimination of freedom and legality are written in the Mauritius Constitution, LGBT rights remain a challenge. Homosexuality is criminalized up to 5 years of imprisonment. Equal marriage is not authorized. There is no legal recognition for transgender, and sex and name change on national identity cards is not possible. In 2018, the annual Pride March was cancelled due to homophobic and transphobic demonstrations in Port-Louis. Many militants have received death threats. One of the organizations working for LGBT rights in Mauritius, namely the Young Queer Alliance, founded in 2014, has been the vanguard of several changes. The organization helped lift the ban on blood donation for homosexuals. In 2018, after advocacy efforts, hormone therapy is available free of charge in public hospitals. More recently, the Young Queer Alliance launched an appeal before the Supreme Court of Mauritius to challenge the constitution of Article 250, which criminalized homosexuality. The hearing set for the beginning of November 2021. Despite the progress made, trans people are still unrecognized. Some of them must apply for asylum in European countries in order to be able to live in dignity and freedom. With the awareness and legal action led by the Young Queer Alliance, I hope that Mauritius will be more inclusive and live up to its name as a rainbow nation. Thank you.
Do you know Mexico? Mexico es culture. Chichen Itza, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Mexico es flavors, the best fruit and tequila. Mexico es spicy, tacos with chile. Oh my God. Mexico es dancing, dancing with soul. Mexico es music. Mariachi. Mexico has the nicest people of the world. Mexico es my hometown, Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta has the largest gay community. Mexico is love.
Nigeria, the giant of Africa, is also known to be the most populated black nation on earth, with a population of about 280 million people. Survey also has it that there are about 8 million LGBTIQ persons living in Nigeria, with a population of 320 people who identify as either transgender, gender non-binary, or gender non-conforming people. LGBTIQ persons get to face different challenges, ranging from discrimination, abuse, assault, rejection, and also conversion therapy. Different Nigerians have their beliefs concerning LGBTIQ persons. Religiously, it's believed that LGBT people have what they call demons. Traditionally, they believe in what they call Obanja spirits disturbing LGBT people, mostly transgender people. This is so because they believe that we get to live the kind of lives that we did not live in our past life. Medically, people believe also that LGBT people have mental problems. The government also believes that LGBTIQ people are criminals. I said so because there is a law against any LGBT person. It's called the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, which criminalizes any LGBT person that is caught here in Nigeria and bags us 14 years in prison. LGBTIQ people are always the best in most of the vocations and careers they move into. But on the brighter side, through education, through communication, through advocacy, we all will be in a better world. Thank you very much.
Quiero contarles que en el antiguo Perú ya existían prácticas homosexuales y esto se ve reflejado a través de los huacos homoeróticos de la cultura moche. También existía el Chuquichinchay, que era una entidad protectora de las personas de dos naturas, es decir, aquellas personas que tenían comportamientos masculinos y femeninos a la vez. En el Perú, la actividad sexual, la orientación y la identidad de género no es criminalizada, pero sin embargo, no contamos con acceso a todos nuestros derechos, como en la salud, el trabajo y en la educación. Esto debido a falta de leyes realmente que sean inclusivas para mi comunidad. En el Perú, las mujeres trans estamos expuestas al bullying y la discriminación por falta de una ley de identidad de género y un DNI que nos represente. Según la Corte Interamericana de Derechos Humanos, el promedio de vida de las mujeres trans en mi país y en Latinoamérica es de los 35 años de edad. Todo esto nos sirve para hacer un llamado a las conciencias de mayores leyes de inclusión, no solamente para mi comunidad trans, sino para toda mi comunidad LGTBIQ+ aquí en el Perú. Porque nosotros estamos expuestos el día a día al bullying, a la falta de oportunidades, a la discriminación, a la violencia. Y nosotros, más allá de tener una orientación o una identidad de género, somos seres humanos y como tal también merecemos tener el mismo respeto, las mismas oportunidades y los mismos derechos. Un logro muy importante que se consiguió en el Perú fue gracias al trabajo de muchos activistas y féminas Perú. Se logró incorporar una norma técnica en el sector salud. En la actualidad, muchos activistas y organizaciones aliadas estamos en la elaboración de un nuevo proyecto de ley a favor de las identidades trans, con lo cual en el Perú esperamos más adelante tener por fin un DNI que nos represente.
Philippines prides itself for being ranked by the UN Development Program Report as one of the most gay-friendly nations in Asia. Looking back to our first ever Pride Parade during June 1996, where only around 200 people marched, we were now able to progress, as seen last 2019 Metro Manila Pride Parade, into 70,000. And even amidst the pandemic, we continue to rally for our rights, may it be online, legislative, or in the streets. Why were we able to do so? Our answer is always as simple as because it is needed. Pride needs to persist because we owe the progression of the pride we carry today to those who persisted despite of their small numbers. It needs to persist as long as there is one kid out there who is made to believe that their existence is an abomination. And as the Philippines prides itself for the aforementioned, we continue to rally because we are still far from being a genuinely LGBTQI+ friendly country, as it seems to be a mere title and doesn't reflect on the tangible actions that our government does. Discrimination is still largely faced by not just our community, but of people of diverse soji in general. Conversion or reparative therapies are still prevalent, which manifests how institutions still see our identities as a mistake that needs repairing. A lot of trans people are still denied of academic and workplace admissions. The brutal killings of our siblings are still adding up as mere statistics. Microaggressions continue to traumatize us, and on top of all these, the Soji Equality Bill that only aims to protect us all still runs for 21 years of not being passed because of homophobic and transphobic bigots who took offices. Our oppression is being attenuated or reduced to the capitalization of our pride. It is systemic and runs deep in our politics and culture as manipulated by colonialism. To be a genuinely LGBTQI+ friendly country entails tangible efforts for our rights to life. We are not just accessories for any socio-political propaganda or personal gains. We are humans as you are. We are your equals, and we deserve the rights that you are having now as privileges. This is Albion Rivalde of the Philippines, and this is about my country, which I am proud of. But at the same time, I am challenging to be genuinely friendly to us, because a fake friend is worse than an enemy.
Ariela Sanchez. I'm a businesswoman, a model, trans activist, and the founder of Mariawo. I studied journalism, communication, and public relations as a higher education, and I also studied acting during high school. I was born in Romania, but I live in London, United Kingdom. I had to move away from Romania in order for me to live my life fully as the woman I am today. On January 2021, TGEU has published an article where Romania has been found to be in violation of the European Convention of Human Rights because its authorities present transgender people with an impossible dilemma. Romania's Accept Association estimates that around 120,000 transgender people live in the country, while less than 50 have managed to change the civil status of men in the last 20 years. Two transgender people spent years in the national courts requesting to change their documents, but they were refused and they was forced to provide proof that they had undergone gender reassignment surgery in order to change their documents. Antonella Lerca, member of TGU board, said, "We call upon the Romanian state to respect its obligation and immediately introduce a legal gender recognition procedure that is quick, transparent, and accessible and based on self-determination. Putting trans people in a dilemma of choosing between having their physical integrity respected or having their gender identity recognized is unacceptable. It is important more than ever for us to continue fighting as a community, including our allies, to make our voices heard. I hope through my online platforms to change something in transgender community, especially in my country, Romania, and to be a better world for us." Ariela Sanchez, Miss Trans Global Romania 2021.
The United Kingdom, or Britain, is a sovereign country situated off the northwestern coast of the European mainland. London Eye is one of the famous structures you can see in central London, and we use transportation by tube, and Britons are really fan of football, and as you can see, West Ham United, they are one of the most well-known football player here in UK. LGBT rights first came to prominence following the decriminalization of sexual activity between men in 1967. Since the turn of the 21st century, LGBT rights have increasingly strengthened in support. The Gender Recognition Act of 2004, which came into effect on the 4th of April 2005, gave trans people full legal recognition of their gender, allowing them to acquire the new birth certificate. The Equality Act of 2010 gave LGBT employee protection from discrimination, harassment, and victimization at work. Now, in September, Pride will be back in London, and we are all celebrating